Hi everyone, and welcome back to Nurturing Your Infant and Yourself. This is our third week together. And so the first 2 weeks we've ended our class and kind of talked about mindfulness throughout both of those first lessons. And today we're really going to be talking about mindfulness as a skill that is easily learned by most people and something that is easily implemented in your day-to-day lives. So the biggest challenge in mindfulness, I think, is remembering to practice it. And so it's not something that we actually have to go out of our way to do, but it's more so a shift in our mind and in our perception and how we normally and automatically go throughout our day. And mindfulness kind of brings us back and challenges us to ask ourselves, are we being mindful? Are we being present in this moment now? Are we behaving in a way that is conducive to the reality that we're facing right in front of us? And so what I mean by that is we often kind of move through life in patterns. And what I mean by that is the way that we are is based upon how we've been raised by the people that were in our lives, mentors, teachers, parents, caregivers, family members. All of these people have really strong influences on us, especially as kids. So we think about, who was part of our upbringing and how they shaped who we are, or part of who we are. And now as adults, kind of learning that a lot of those patterns and ways of thinking might have been kind of implanted in you from somebody else. So, right, without kind of going too far off on a tangent here, our thoughts and our perceptions and how we think of the world is based a lot upon the people that raised us. So now when we come into adulthood and especially into parenthood, we might still be running on those old patterns. So there's old thinking patterns or there's old ways of doing things. So mindfulness is a tool that helps us kind of challenge our old thinking patterns, maybe our short temper or the fuse that we have that kind of sets us off if somebody knows how to push our buttons, and it's like, okay, well, I've been telling myself that X, Y, and Z makes me frustrated. And that's an interesting rule that I have for myself, because it's almost like, okay, this makes me mad, so I'm going to be mad. However, if you take a step back and you say, well, why does this actually make me mad, or does this make me frustrated, or how do I actually feel when this happens, as opposed to how maybe you've been taught how to feel when this certain thing happens. I guess I'm trying to think of a example from my own life of something that I've changed in myself due to mindfulness practices. So something as simple as dropping glass or a dish or something that's breakable on the floor, right? My upbringing, my patterns that I've kind of absorbed over time were to be, one, to yell, to say, oh my God, or a curse word when something drops and breaks. And so now I've kind of noticed that, oh, that's a reaction that I'm choosing to have in that moment in regards to what just happened. So I take a step back. It's like, okay, let me reframe what just happened in front of me. Okay, this glass broke. It could be a really unmeaningful glass. Like, say it's not like a family heirloom or something like that. But it's just a kitchen glass and it broke on the floor. So instead of kind of shouting and jumping back and kind of igniting in that more stressful response in my own body, I'm going to choose to to watch it all unfold right before my eyes, right? So I might try to catch the glass before it falls on the ground, but then I see it hit the ground, smash, that big sound, and then it's like, okay, assess. What just happened? The glass is broken on the floor. Okay, let me look around, make sure that I'm safe, make sure that other people are safe if they're around too. And then start moving in a way that is solution-based. So now I'm gonna go get my broom and dustpan and I'm gonna clean it up. And I didn't have to have any of that big kind of stressful reaction to something that is an everyday thing that can just happen, right? Things break. And it's up to me to not have that reaction in response to a situation. So I would like to define mindfulness kind of concretely here. So the definition that I like to use when describing mindfulness is from Jon Kabat-Zinn. And I've referenced his book. I kind of read from it last week. I'm going to read a little bit more from it today. But he is a leader in mindfulness and stress reduction. In fact, in the 1970s, he started a program at UMass Hospital for people who were coming in with chronic pain. So the doctors were kind of doing everything that they absolutely could do medically for those interventions for pain for patients. And so what Jon Kabat-Zinn and his colleagues did was create this program called mindfulness-based stress reduction. And so it's an 8-week program that they went through. They learned all about mindfulness, how to practice it in different ways and practical ways throughout your day. And the main tenet of it, again, just like I mentioned earlier, is remembering to be in the moment. So Jon Kabat-Zinn defines mindfulness as to pay attention in a particular way. And that way is on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. So again, mindfulness is to pay attention in a particular way. And that way is in the present moment, on purpose, and without judgment. So now that we have that kind of working definition, think back again to an instance where you've dropped something, you've broken something on the ground. And so in the present moment, that's what's happening. You're paying attention to what's happening there. You're doing it purposefully. You're saying, this is where I am now and this is what I'm dealing with. And then that non-judgmental part is the part that I think takes the most practice, because it takes kind of breaking down those old patterns of thought and those old patterns of behavior that we really truly have ingrained in us unless we choose to actively do something different. So non-judgmentally cleaning up broken glass, right? Instead of being in your mind about, oh, I shouldn't have done this, or I can't believe this is happening to me, right? There's a whole narrative that goes along with all of our daily situations. And so if we can choose to take a step back and be a little bit more neutral rather than so reactive, that's just going to help us and the people around us in the long run by not having that negative kind of mindset when anything uncomfortable or unpleasurable happens. So to put it kind of more in your shoes as a new parent, think about when baby has a really poopy diaper at a really inconvenient time, right? Whether you just change them and they're in this really cute new outfit, they just had a bath, or you're going out to the store and they decide to do it in the car seat, right? All of these things that we don't have any control over. We can't predict when those types of things are going to happen, but we can choose how we are going to respond. So the piece in mindfulness is accepting what is happening right in front of you in reality, right? That is the present moment. So learning that the present moment is not always the ideal moment. there's so many times during our day where we're uncomfortable, where we're not doing something that we want to be doing, or something didn't go the way that we had planned. And that's where our practice comes in and helps us to become more flexible rather than rigid, right? Because the rigidity and the fighting against what is happening is where we start to kind of rub against ourselves, and there's more friction and there's more conflict when we're kind of fighting against what is actually happening rather than choosing a more neutral path to deal with what is happening. So again, paying attention in the present moment on purpose and without judgment. So this takes remembering, this takes the ability to notice when your mind starts to go off on tangents, when your mind starts to snowball into different stories or narratives in your own mind. So you can think of a sign, right, on a post. You have this sign, and there's an arrow going this way that says to the past, and then there's an arrow going this way and it says to the future, and then right at the top of the sign it says now. Right now. We are in our minds a lot about the past, things that have happened to us, especially if traumatic things have happened to us. You think about how your baby was brought into the world, and if that was a traumatic situation for you or for your baby, that's not something that's easy to forget. And you don't want to forget, but you want to be able to move beyond that stage of life with a greater ability to deal with the issues that might follow. Being mindful, being aware of what's happening now, rather than being stuck in the past, being stuck in trauma, or being stuck in a situation that was really hard to deal with, right? Because that situation has passed, so it's in the past. And then in the future, we're always thinking about what's going to happen when, or I'll be happy when this happens. That's a lot of our worries, because we can't know what's going to happen, and as humans we always are wanting to control things and know how things are going to play out. And so that futuristic thinking and planning, helpful, absolutely, and we need to have goals and dreams and a plan of what's to come, but that's where mindfulness helps us again become more flexible for when those plans don't always pan out the way that we had envisioned. And so right now in the world, myself included, there's so many people experiencing this feeling of anxiousness. What's going to happen? What's to come? How do I plan for the future when things are so uncertain? This is where our practice of being present helps us to ground down, to not get too caught up in those really spiraling thoughts into the future or to the past. Right? You might even be thinking back like, oh my gosh, if I didn't do this, then this wouldn't have happened, right? We're always rehashing things from the past, or, in the future, if I do this, then this. But that doesn't always happen, and we know that. So mindfulness helps us to find that flexibility, to take a step back from our own emotions, our own thoughts, and really see with eyes wide open what is happening here, and how can I respond in a way that is helpful, that is loving, that is however you need to respond in that moment, right? Or there's going to be some moments where you really do need to take action, and maybe it's not something that you can do pleasantly. That's okay, right? If your baby is going through something of like a medical emergency or something like that, can you still maintain this sense of groundedness and rootedness while being in a stressful situation, so that way you are able to kind of stay there and anchor down for other people who may be having a hard time. Again, maybe your child found a little piece of something and they start choking. So rather than allowing your stress to make you inactive. You have conscious awareness of what's going on and how you can respond to the best of your ability. So I have 12 exercises for mindful parenting here. This is from the Everyday Blessings, Mindful Parenting by John Kabat-Zinn and his wife Mila Kabat-Zinn. I don't know that I'm going to be able, honestly, to read all 12. We're about halfway through our time together. So if I don't get through all through, I will definitely read them again in another video. So starting at number 1, try to imagine the world from your child's point of view, purposefully letting go of your own. Do this every day for at least a few moments to remind you of who this child is and what he or she faces in the world. So this is a great practice to do when your child is an infant all the way up until they are 20 years old. That practice of empathy and trying to truly understand who that little life, that person is in relation to the rest of the world, rather than just even within your own family or in the relationship that you have with your child. Kind of stepping back and understanding their point of view. Number 2, imagine how you appear and sound from your child's point of view. So having you as a parent today in this moment, how might this modify how you carry yourself in your body and in space, how you speak and what you say? How do you want to relate to your child in this moment? Number 3, practice seeing your children as perfect, just the way they are. See if you can stay mindful of their sovereignty, which is their autonomy, their being, their individualistic sense of being. Being mindful of their sovereignty from moment to moment and working at accepting them as they are when it is hardest for you to do so. So again, with a new infant, this can become challenging because for the most part, they are immobile. They stay where you need them to stay. However, they may be really fussy during a time that you had planned on doing that load of laundry, or you had planned even to chat with a girlfriend or one of your friends on the phone or a family member, and baby is just not wanting you to do that in that moment. And so practice seeing them as being perfect even when they're doing something that is undesired, right? So they're doing what they know how to be doing. They need something from you in that moment. And as frustrating as that can be, we step into, oh, this is my job. This is what my child needs from me now. Number 4, be mindful of your expectations of your children and consider whether they are truly in your child's best interest. Also be aware of how you communicate those expectations and how they affect your children. So this is something maybe more challenging to practice with an infant rather than an older child who you might set different types of expectations upon. But often I think even no matter how little the child is, I think of trips to the grocery store, and we have really high expectations of we're going to be able to do all of our shopping, our kiddo's going to be perfectly behaved, they're not going to fuss or cry at all. And so we set those really high expectations, or we might think that they're just normal expectations. And we set those expectations only for those expectations to not be met. And then what happens? We get frustrated, we're annoyed with the situation for how it is because it's not how we want it to be. So we're kind of setting ourselves up to feel that level of suffering when we can again take a step back, use our practice and say, what's happening now and how can I best help this situation? So number 5 is practicing altruism, putting the needs of your children above your own whenever possible. Then see if there isn't some common ground when your true needs can also be met. You may be surprised at how much overlap is possible, especially if you are patient and strive for balance. Practicing altruism. So altruism is doing good for other people without expecting anything back in return. So as parents, you may do this really naturally, or maybe this is an area that is a little bit more challenging to do because it's always just been you. You've always been able just to care for yourself, and now this new life needs you constantly, 24/7 around the clock. And so practicing altruism can become challenging. Putting the needs of your children above your own, that becomes really challenging, especially without different supports in place. So when you have your child, your one-on-one, being their kind of guiding light for them and acting in a way that is loving and caring and just very giving, over time can really have its challenges. So finding time for yourself outside of those moments when you're with your children and you're giving them absolutely everything that you can, so important to be able to fill up your cup outside of caring for your child. So if you have the support through your partner or through family or friends, again, this pandemic is making things really challenging for you, so we're all just doing the best that we can. Again, another reminder that this list isn't a to-do list by any means. These are just ideas and ways that we can incorporate mindfulness throughout our day with our children. So number 6, they write, when you feel lost or at a loss, remember to stand still. As in this poem that they had mentioned. The poem reads, "The forest breathes. Listen to what it is saying. The forest knows where you are, and you must let it find you." So meditating on the whole by bringing your full attention to the situation, your child, your family, and to yourself. And doing so, you may go beyond thinking, even good thinking, and perceive intuitively with the whole of your being, your feelings, intuition, mind, body, and soul, what really needs to be done. If that is not clear in any moment, maybe the best thing is to not do anything at all until it becomes clear. Sometimes it's good to remain silent. So silence is something that a lot of us are uncomfortable with. We might think it's awkward to be silent. We always feel like we need to fill the space, whether having just the television on in the background or music playing, or when you're sitting with friends, if it's not this lively conversation, we label it as either boring or again awkward, or just doesn't feel right sometimes when there's quiet. However, with all of the noise that we are kind of exposed to in the world, it's quite literally like noise that you could hear, and then also the information that's just being kind of blasted at us through advertisement and things that we can see with our eyes, and all of this stuff that we're inputting into our body. Silence is really good to practice whenever you can, and especially when you don't have something to say, you don't have that perfect answer, or you're not sure. Better to just kind of take a breather, say, I'm not sure what to do in this instance, and be okay with that. We don't always know what to do. We don't always need to jump into action of some kind. Sometimes inaction could be more helpful or more healing rather than trying to fill up that space. especially when we feel at a loss, it's like we kind of can be down on ourselves for not knowing what to do. And then the next decision that we make is kind of one that doesn't have a lot of clarity behind it. So when you feel at a loss, it's okay to stand still. It's okay to not have to say anything or do anything, and just let yourself be. Take a few breaths, refocus, and move forward from there. So number 7 is similar, and it says, try embodying silent presence. This will grow out of both formal and informal mindfulness practices over time. If you attend to how you carry yourself and what you project in your body, mind, and speech, and listen carefully. So I'm going to read that one more time. Try embodying silent presence. This will grow out of both formal and informal mindfulness practice over time if you attend to how you carry yourself and what you project in body, mind, and speech. Listen carefully. So our own body language, how we carry ourselves, is kind of another way that we're broadcasting information to other people. So if you find yourself tense, shoulders up to your ears constantly, other people can feel that. If you find yourself crossing your arms and kind of closing off in that way, that energy again can be felt by other people. If you're the type of person who, when you get frustrated or nervous and you're sitting in a chair and you start bouncing your knee up and down and kind of just shaking your whole body, that is very noticeable both to other people and then the signals that you're sending to your own body. So what this one is trying to say, embodying silent presence, is understanding how our body and our thoughts and then the way we say things, how we are projecting ourselves out to the world. And being able to know yourself so deeply that you know who you are and you know how you're projecting yourself out, right? A lot of this kind of goes unconscious. We don't even realize that we're tapping our foot, and we don't even realize that we have our arms closed in a really closed off kind of way that's not open to conversation, and it's not conducive to this interaction even with your new infant. So your body language says a lot, and babies are really receptive to those really subtle shifts in people, and they can feel that energy shift a lot more intuitively than even some adults, right? Because we've been kind of exposed to so much in the world that we may lose some of those really basic skills. So I'm going to stop there for today. We got through number 7, and I think we'll read the rest of these mindful exercises for parents next time. So I hope that today was just a easy to understand kind of introduction to mindfulness. I know we talked a lot about a few different topics, but mindfulness is, again, a way of paying attention, of being aware of what's happening in the moment. And that means being aware of what's happening in your mind in any given moment. So you could be washing the dishes and you could be having that argument again in your mind with your friend or with your partner, and you're kind of scrubbing those dishes and you're kind of off in that space without even realizing it. So mindfulness is remembering to be here now in this moment with whatever is happening and unfolding in front of you. So I hope today again was helpful. We're going to review again some more mindfulness techniques and strategies and ideas about how we can incorporate mindfulness into our day-to-day lives to bring us less stress and to bring us closer to the people that we love. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you again next week. Take care.